Om Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kuru Me Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Devo Maheshwaraha Guru Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Om Bhadram Karne Shrinuyama Devaha Bhadram Pashyemakshabhiryajatraha Sthirairangai Tuštuvagam Swastanubihi Vyashema Deva Hitam Yadayuhu Swastina Indro Vruddhashravaha Swastina Pusha Vishwavedaha Swastinartaksha Arishtanemihi Swastina Bruhaspatir Dadatu Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Team Param Vedanta extends a warm welcome for the 28th session of Mandukya Karika. In today's session, we conclude our study of Alata Shanti Prakaranam, which is the fourth and final chapter of Mandukya Karika by Gaudapada Acharya. This happens to be the biggest chapter with 100 solid verses. In today's session, we discuss Karika 61 to 100, covering important topics of plurality to reality, the 7 fruits of knowledge, from passion to dispassion, and finally summarize the chapter. We have with us Dr. Anupama, Sri Venkatesh Prasad, Dr. Komal Prasad, and Dr. Sundar explaining today's topics. Our revered teacher, Dr. Timmappa Hegde sir, will lead the session with his insights and thereby facilitating a deeper understanding. Over to you, sir.
Sadashiva-samarambham Shankaracharya-madhyamam Asmadacharya-paryantam Vande Guru-paramparam. Om. We come to the last class of Mandukya Alata Shanti Prakaranam. The next class will be a kind of a summary, a take-home message. What is that we have to retain from the study of the Mandukya and the 4 Karikas of Gaudapada Acharya. The primary purpose of Alata Shanti, which has about 100 Karikas, is to negate all other systems of philosophy and to establish Advaitam. It's written Dvaitam, that's a mistake. Why? In Dvaitam, there is no permanent solution. In Advaitam alone, we have a permanent solution. In today's class, we will see a summary of the essence of Advaita Vedanta as we have been able to get from the Mandukya Upanishad. There are few essential points. If these points are known by all students, you are not going to be wrong. The first principle that we need to have in our understanding is there is only one truth, that is Brahman, that I don't experience, the very experiencer. Whatever I see and experience, including my whole body and mind, is mithya, or of a lower order of reality. And my true nature is that of Brahman. I am Brahman, and that claim is called Aham Brahmasmi. Adi Shankara has given this in half a shloka. He says, Shlokardena pravakshami yad uktam granthi koti bihi Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya Jivo Brahmaiva Naparaha. So let this be registered in our mind, and much of this will be touched in our class today. There is a certain fundamental principles of Vedanta, 2 of them, which our teacher Swami Paramarthananda repeats every time. That will also be elaborated in class today. And that is what is called Atma Anatma Viveka. I, or the real me, is different from whatever I experience. Any attribute that I experience belongs to the object of my experience. I, the real me, as Atma, I am Nirguna. I have no attributes whatsoever. So this is also termed in other terms. It can be Sat Asat Viveka, Atma Anatma Viveka, Kshetra Kshetrajna Viveka, Purusha Prakriti Viveka. And in today's chapter, we will see For the first time ever, Drik Drishya Viveka comes in the Mandukya Karika. We will see in today's class. So who am I? I am someone other than whatever I experience. So this whole experience world, Naham. What about my body? Mano, Buddhi, Hankara, Chittani, Naham. Then who am I? Chidananda Rupaha Shivoham Shivoham. I am the witness of this body and mind. I function through this body and mind. The body and mind is only an instrument. So the first principle is I am someone other than this body-mind complex. There are a few things we need to understand in this whole topic of seer and seen, or Drik and Drishyam. The absolute seen is the world of my experience. The absolute seer is my consciousness. So in between that, there is something called seen seer. And what is the seen seer? My sense organs and mind come under the category of seen seer. That means they are the seers of the world, but from the consciousness, they are seen. Now, let us make one analysis of why do we suffer from samsara, primarily because we lack Atma, Anatma, Viveka. Now, our whole problem is from samsara to moksha. And the whole of the Mandukya Karika will reiterate again and again, what is the cause of samsara? Anything with Dvaitam is samsara. Now, the sense organs and the mind together is called ahankara, which is experienced, and the seer is consciousness. So what do? As ahankara, I have punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam. As ahankara, I am an eternal samsari because I'm subject to sanchita, agami, prarabdha karma, and the problems of life is not going to spare me, the samsari. On the other hand, there is another aspect on me as Sakshi. This Sakshi is what is described in the seventh mantra as Ekatma Pratyaya Saram, that which has never undergone a change. If you look at your photograph, my body has changed, my mind has changed, but it's something that has never changed. That which does not travel, that which does not do anything, which is Akarta, which is Abhokta. So understand, I have this body-mind complex, which is permanently a samsari, and there is the Sakshi, which is eternally a samsari. There is no physical distance between the two, so we are a proper mixture of these two. To interact, I need both of these. No guru, no teacher can physically separate them, but a guru can help you to make a distinction that I am not this body-mind complex which I can experience, but I am the experiencer. Mere Sakshi cannot say I because it cannot do anything. And mere Ahankara has no existence without Sakshi. Why do we have samsara? This comes again and again in Mandukya and Karika. It is because of Ajnanam and Adhyasa. Self-ignorance, and therefore I make a mistake, an adhyasa, identify with my body-mind complex. So this is the final message of all Vedanta. I have to claim the real I. The body-mind is only an instrument, a costume, a role play which has to be done. The moment the curtains are on, you see the world is a stage. Our life is a leela. All I have to do is play my role 100%, all the time remembering I am someone other than the role. I'm grateful to each of these speakers who have done an excellent summary of so many karikas to help us in understanding. The opening speaker will be Dr. Anupama. Dr. Anupama, please.
Thank you, sir. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. In these verses, Gaudapadacharya is presenting the Vedanta Sara, Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya. Reasoning being, whatever is an object of experience is Mithya. Yat Drishyam Tat Mithya. He mentions two categories, the Trik or Sakshi, the witness consciousness, and Drishyam, which includes the Chittam mind and Prapancha, the universe. and arrives at the conclusion that prapancha is an absolute drishyam, therefore mithya, and chittam, although subject-object, is still mithya, and sakshi is the absolute drik. Drik eva natu drishyate. So, what is the difference between the seer drik and the seen drishyam? The seer is different from the seen. The seer is inside, advaitam and sentient, whereas the seen is outside, it's pluralistic and jada, inert. Neither the seer nor seen can see itself, and one cannot be seer and seen simultaneously. If both the mind and world are mithya, how do you explain their tangibility? Just as one alatam in motion projects a multitude of images, so also the individual mind, the waker's mind, projects the swapna prapancha, and the total mind maya projects the jagrat prapancha. In swapna, as Taijasa, we experience a tangible dream world. But for the waker, the Vishwa, this dream world is not tangible. Similarly, as Turyam, this waker's world is mithya. Tangibility is thought vibration in the mind, be it vyashti or samashti. It is chitta spandanam eva. Therefore, tangibility is a myth. What is srishti or creation? Let's understand the two fundamental theories of creation, srishti drishti vada and drishti srishti vada. In srishti drishti vada, we see creation because it exists, and this is the view of the majority of us. Whereas in drishti srishti vada, creation exists only because we see it. This is the Vedantic view. All that is seen depends on the seer, the drik. The implications being, in srishti drishti vada, the world exists, we are born into it, we die out of it, we experience limitations and therefore samsara. Whereas in drishti srishti vada, there is a paradigm shift. We become independent of the outside. As atmaneva atmana tushta, we can live like a jivan mukta. The mind and world we agree are mithya. Are they equally or differently mithya? Mithya could be pratibhasika, as the waker's mind projecting swapna prapancha, or vyavaharika, like Maya projecting the Jagrat prapancha. But what is common? Projection. That is significant. Ultimately, both are Mula Avidya projection. Therefore, both dream and waking have an equal status. This is Drishti Srishti Vada. Next, if the world is mithya, why are the scriptures so focused on the theories and laws of creation? Vedanta teaches in two stages, the Adhyaropa stage, where the world is taught to be born, and the Apavada stage, where we are told it's really not born, it's mithya. Yaha, meaning this world, kalpita samvritya asti. From the standpoint of Turyam, meaning paramarthika drishtya, the world is non-existent, prapanchopashamam. Paramarthena asau nasti. Next, we have so many intense and diverse experiences every day. How can we prove that they are just mithya? Drishti Srishti Vada says Jagat Prapancha is as mithya as Swapna Prapancha. The world with all its objects is mithya. The mind with all its thoughts is mithya. Why? Rupam Drishyam, Lochanam Drik. Next, Brahman is creating a seemingly existent universe because of the power of Maya. Are Brahman and Maya two entities? Is there duality? We must remember Maya is as mithya as creation. Out of a dream seed, a dream sprout grows, and then the dream flowers. The Karanam seed could only be as real or mithya as the Karyam plant. Therefore, Maya is mithya. At the most, we can call it Vyavaharika Satyam. Grand vision being Aham Brahma Asmi. I am the Adhishtanam of all minds and lokas. Both mind and world are appearances in one Sakshi Chaitanya. This is Drishti Srishti Vada. I am neither the mind nor the world, but Turyam. Where is the duality? We know that both mind and world are mithya. Can either of them exist independently of the other? For example, just mind and no world, or just world and no mind? Ubehi anyonya drishye, take him. Logic being, mind and world are interdependent for existence. This is called anyonya ashraya. Why? Every thought corresponds to an experience. The world depends on the mind for existence. When awake, the world exists. When asleep, where is the world? In the words of Ramana, Diya saho deti, diyastameti, meaning both thoughts and world arise and set together. By thought, the world is lit. Brahman is adhishtanam of both thoughts and world, which rise and fall. But Brahman has no birth or end. If you ask an Advaitin, tad asti kim, does that pair, meaning the mind world pair, exist? What would he say? Na iti uchyate. Why? Because both borrow isness from Sakshi Chaitanyam. Both are mithya. This is called manonashtaha, an understanding that the mind has a borrowed existence from Sakshi Chaitanyam. All creatures experienced are unreal. Are human beings also unreal? Yatha swapnamaya jiva, just as a creature seen in dream, jayate mriyate, appears and disappears. Yatha mayamaya jivaha, just as a creature conjured by magic, jayate mriyate. Yatha nirmitiko jiva, jayate mriyate, just as a materialized jiva by a siddha purusha, appears and disappears, like sage Vishwamitra and the Trishanku Svarga, so also human beings, like all creatures, are technically unreal. They are mere superimpositions on Sakshi Chaitanyam. Next, if everything is unreal, what aspect of creation exists in Paramarthika Satyam? In Paramarthika Satyam, even an iota of creation is not there. Na nirodho, na chotpatti, na sadhaka, na mumukshuhu, na vai mukta, ityesha paramarthata. If all jivas are unreal, which at least one jiva is really born? Na kinchit jayate jiva sambhavaha asya na vidyate. Etad tat uttamam satyam yatra kinchit na jayate. Gaudapadacharya says, no jiva is really born. Kaschid jiva na jayate. Why? Because every jivatma is none other than Paramatma. For this jivatma to be born, there is no cause. Sambhava na vidyate. Uttamam satyam is a karanam brahma, the Paramarthika satyam or turyam. And in that turyam, nothing is born. Kinchit na jayate. If no jiva or jagat are born, what is this that I am experiencing? Same question, same answer. Every tangible experience is our intangible thoughts in motion. The chitta spandanam, meaning Chaitanyam in motion, represented here in this picture, we can see Nataraja as the cosmos, and motion of the universe is symbolized as the eternal dance of Nataraja. And out of this motion rises the Dvaita Prapancha, consisting of Grahyam, the subject or Pramata, and Grahakam, the object Prameya. How can Mithya reveal Satyam? Although Pratibimba Mukham is Mithya, doesn't it reveal the Bimba Mukham? Similarly, Mithya Shastra, Guru, Shishya, Mithya Sadhana Chatushtaya Sampati can reveal the Satya Vastu. What is the consequence of this Chitta Spandanam, the illusion caused by Chaitanyam in motion? Just as Alata Spandanam causes diverse patterns, Vijnana Spandanam or Chitta Spandanam becomes this universe. Consequently, we see Vishwam pashyati karya karanataya. We see cause-effect. We believe the seed causes the sprout. Swami, Swaswami Sambata. We see relationship between the boss and servant. Shishya Acharya. Pitra Putryatmata Bedaha. We see the diversity in Swapna Jagrat Shushupti. But what have we become? We have become Maya Paribramita Purushas. What happens when the mind stops vibrating or thinking? Alatasya Shanti. As in sleep, there is no subject-object duality. The ultimate truth, the chittam or consciousness is nirvishayam, nityam, asparsha. It has no separate object of contact. It is asanga. The Purva Pakshi objects, he says, if Atma is nirvishayam, how can one exist without any sambandha? Answer, Advaitam is not absence of Dvaitam, but Advaitam is in spite of Dvaitam. He then says, if Dvaita is Mityam, the word Advaita should also be Mithya because it is transactional, it is Vyavaharika. Shankaracharya says it certainly is Mithya, superimposed on everything else like the Satya Adhishtana. The Purva Pakshi then says, if the word Advaitam is Mithya and can't be used to describe Brahman, why does Shastra use it? Answer, for teaching purpose only, like using a mirror to see one's face. Fact being, yato vacho nivartante, tatra chakshu gacchati, nava gacchati, no manaha. Ignorant people think Brahman is Karanam or Savikaram. To negate this notion, we have to use some word. Here it becomes Nirvikara. Therefore, from Paramarthika view, since Savikara itself is not there, Nirvikara becomes irrelevant. From Paramarthika Drishti, how do we define Brahman? Silence. Amatra Chaturta. Mauna Vakya. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Anupama. That was a huge amount of spiritual wisdom condensed in a very short manner with very nice illustrations. Our next speaker will be Shri Venkatesh Prasad. Venkatesh ji, please.
Thank you, sir. Hari Om Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha. Alata Shanti Prakaranam is broadly classified into three parts. After completing the first two chapters on Ajativada and Jagan Mithyatvam, we have entered the third and final part, which is the summarization of the entire Vedanta, in which Atma Swarupam, Atma Swarupa Gnanam, Atma Swarupa Gnana Sadhanam, and Atma Swarupa Gnana Phalam are discussed. The three parts are classified into 5 topics. Introduction, Paramata Nirashaha, Vedanta Saraha, Vedanta Sadhanani, and Upasamhara. The 5 topics are further divided into 13 sections, out of which we have already completed study of 10 sections, and now we will take up the 11th section covering Karika 75 to 81 and is titled 7 Fruits of Illumination. What are these 7 fruits of illumination? At what stage in the path of self-realization do they happen, and in what order? These 7 fruits of illumination are also called 7 fruits of knowledge. These fruits are the end of attachment, liberation from causality, liberation from birth, liberation from 3 afflictions, liberation from infatuation, attainment of equipoise, vision of the self-effulgent self. In this section of 7 verses, each verse represents a particular fruit that is earned as a result of transition from duality to non-duality. It is not as though these 7 fruits come at 7 different stages of growth. No, they all come together at the end of spiritual path when one has attained illumination. Next slide, sir. Let us take the example of a fire that is being kindled in the fireplace at home. When the fire is burning fully, that fire has many aspects by which it can be described. One can start by describing its flames, their height, shape, etc. Then one can describe the glow of the fire as a whole, then the warmth of heat and that it produces, then the crackling sound produced by the flames, then the little sparks that emanate from the fire, then the smoke that it emits, and finally the ashes that it leaves in its wake. All these happen at the same time when the fire is fully aglow. The fully burning fire represents illumination. This is what is being described in these verses from 4.75 to 4.81. There are 7 aspects of illumination, and we shall see each aspect being described separately. Although they are all happening at the same time in a God-realized sage, which is called the 7 fruits of illumination. Next slide. What is abhinivesha in the first fruit of knowledge? How to overcome it? The end of attachment. Abhuta abhinivesho asti dvayam tatra na vidyate dvaya bhavam sabuddhyaiva nirnimitto na jayate. Dvayam tatra na vidyate. So long as the idea of duality has not left us completely, there remains a trace of attachment to objects of enjoyment, not in the God-realized stage, but in us who are still striving for it. The result is bondage. We are still bound. The inclination towards the objects is not eradicated altogether. We all experience this to some extent while still progressing. Abhuta abhiniveshaha asti. Usually, it is taken to mean as a lingering trace of attachment. The old false knowledge persists in spite of our efforts in sadhana. Well, 99.9% of people are in the clutches of attachment to some degree. Ceaseless, sincere striving for greater dispassion is required. The third and the fourth part, Dvaya abhavam sa buddhva eva. However, with saints, the situation is different. This line takes a peep into the life of saints. We see the saint plucking the first fruit of illumination, that is detachment. Nirnimittaha najayate. When we have realized the self, non-dual reality, then the attraction for objects leaves us completely, never to return. Abhinivesha never shows its face again to haunt us. Then we are not pushed into the cycle of birth and death anymore. The cycle ends once for all. What are the other fruits of illumination? The rest of the section reveals them all one by one. Next slide, sir. What is the causality? How to transcend it? Next slide, sir. Liberation from causality. Yadana labhate hetun uttama adhama madhyamat tadana jayate chittam hetu abhave phalam kutaha. Causality, hetu karma, has been another theme which has dominated this prakarana. It is another one of the very deep-seated mental concepts that is extremely difficult to root out. Yada na labhate hetun. First, we see our ignorant perspective. The tangled mass of cause and effect is dragged along from time immemorial into every situation in the present. It makes it impossible for us to see the present as it actually is. Our past colors it all the time. Uttama, Adhama, Madhyaman. Our actions in the past that provide us with the vision of our future may be divided into 3 categories. Uttama, the superior influences, the sattvic actions. Adhama, the inferior influences, the tamasic actions. Madhyama, the middling influences, the rajasic actions that produce partly good and partly evil tendencies. All 3 have to be transcended. Tada na jayate chittam. That is the fruit gained, freedom from all karma. Causality is actually our karma. As long as our karma is not worked out, it will continue to hurl us into the womb after womb to work itself out. Hetu abhave phalam kutaha. When all karmas are burnt, then there is no longer any caste left to retain the human birth. When causality, karma, disappears from our heart, then what is there to cause our rebirth into another womb and create the effect of a human birth? Next slide, sir. What is anutpattihi and how to attain it? Next slide, sir. Liberation from birth. Animittasya chittasya ya anutpattihi samadvaya ajatasyaiva sarvasya chittadrishyam hi tadyataha. Animittasya chittasya. When causality has ended, when causality becomes a casuality, ya anutpattihi samad advaya, then birthlessness becomes one's very nature. This represents the true state of our being. Unlike the world built up by causality, the birthless world is sama and advaya, constant and absolute. It does not change under any circumstances. Ajatasya eva sarvasya. It is not that it becomes constant and absolute only after we realize it. It is always constant and absolute. birthless and non-dual, even when we are not realized. Upon realization, we are liberated from birth, which means we regain our birthlessness. Chitta drishyam hi tat yataha. When we are deeply steeped in causality and duality, we were or the always shall be birthless and non-dual. At no point of time we are non-real or non-dual. We are only eluded into thinking that we are the opposite in nature. Next slide, sir. In this fourth fruit, what are the three afflictions and what causes their obliteration? Next slide, sir. Buddha nimittatam satyam hetum pruthag anapnuat vita shokam tatha kamam abhayam padamashnute. The chain of phala continues to bring more fruit to the man of realization. Buddha animittatam satyam. The whole illumination is as a result of causality being discarded. Hetum prithak anapnavan. Anything separate from himself. This implies not seeing anything else which could be taken as a cause in its own right. In non-duality, the seeker loses all desire for pleasures on earth as well as pleasures in heaven. This is the highest goal held aloft by the Upanishad portion of the Vedas. Vita shokam tatha kamam. When the above conditions are fulfilled, it means one has realized the truth, the non-dual state. For that is what it boils down to. The non-dual state is only state in which there can be no presence of three afflictions, namely sorrow, desire, and fear. Abhayam padam ashnute. Such a person attains the state of sorrowlessness, desirelessness, and fearlessness. What is the cause of next slide, sir? What is the cause of attachment and infatuation? What is the solution to this in order to see the fifth fruit? Next slide, sir. Liberation from infatuation. Abhuta abhiniveshadhi sadrushe tat pravartate. Vastu abhavam sabuddhyaiva nissangam vinivartate. Similar to attachment, but a more disease from a form of it is infatuation. Abhuta abhiniveshaha hi. Persistent belief in unreality. This is the belief in unreality that produces attachment. It also produces infatuation. An infatuated person cannot resist it for too long. Soon he yields to it and runs after it. Sadrishe tat pravartate. Because of the attachment he has developed for them, he becomes addicted to the objects of pleasure. Vastu abhavam sabuddha eva. Hollowness of objects. This is the solution to the problem. One has to first overcome abhinivesha by having a firm conviction on the unreality of objects. Then one receives the fifth fruit of realization, freedom from infatuation. Nissangam vinivartate. The mind that is free from infatuation turns its back on the objects of pleasure. It no longer feels any craving for them, even when they are close to him. Next slide. When does this tat samyam ajam advayam, the sixth fruit of illumination, shines? Next slide, sir. Nivrittasya apravrittasya nischalahi tada sthiti vishayasahi buddhanam tat samyam ajam advayam. Nivrittasya apravrittasya, the previous fruit gained was freedom from infatuation. This completely frees the mind from being harassed by the alluring objects. What happens to it? Nischalahi tada sthitihi. The mind, as a result of freeing itself from the burden, is left to itself and becomes still and serene. It enjoys the absence of restlessness. It becomes motionless. In the light of the alata metaphor, it is now vibrationless. Appearances are all dissolved. We only see the single point of light of alata. There is total equipoise in the mind. Vishayaha sahi buddhanam. This is the calm condition which the wise ones strive for in order to abide for long on the self without any disturbance. The adept gives all his attention to the object of his vision. Example, the form of his favorite deity, the Brahmakara vritti, or in doing Omkara Upasana. Tat Samyam Ajam Advayam. The sixth fruit dawns in a mind that has attained this peaceful state through realizing birthlessness and non-duality. It is the fruit of stillness and equipoise. Next slide. What is the state of ajam, anidram, aswapnam, a state of self-effulgent self, the seventh and final fruit of knowledge? Next slide, sir. This is a vision of self-effulgent self. Ajam, anidram, aswapnam, prabhatam bhavati swayam, sakrit vibhato hi evaisha, dharmo dhatu swabhavataha. This is the permanent vision of self, signified by light. Three qualities are mentioned which characterize the state of self-realization. Ajam, anidram, aswapnam. Ajam, the birthless state, to be unborn, is to be eternal, indestructible, unchanging. Anidram, the sleepless state. We know that sleep is a simile for ignorance. This is the state of freedom from ignorance. There is no non-apprehension of reality. Aswapnam, the dreamless state. We know that dream is a simile for the illusory experiences in the world. This is a state that is free from those experiences, as it is free of all duality. There is no misapprehension of reality. The rest of the verse, Sakrit Vibhato hi evaisha dharmo dhatu swabhavataha, glorifies the self-effulgence of the self. It is luminous by its very nature. It needs nothing else to reveal itself, as it is self-revealing. Hari Om. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sri Venkatesh Prasad. A very nice analysis of these karikas. Each of these karikas, you were able to give the original karika in their very limited time and also give us a very clear explanation. Dr. Komal, please.
Thank you, sir. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. The next set of verses, we are going further. As we see further, we should give ourselves some time to think. We know that spiritual practice, spiritual journey is through Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. As we are seeing, where are we? Are we doing Shravana? Are we taking notes and in the face of Manana, going through that? Or have we reached the stage of Nididhyasanam? There are two kinds of Nididhyasanam. We know what Swami Paramarthananda says, Shravana and Manana, going through the notes, going through the audios, going through the teachings, is the easiest part of spiritual journey, which we are regularly doing. The next step of internalizing, that is Nididhyasana. There are two kinds. We know two kinds of Nididhyasana. One is Samadhi Rupa, where we devote a particular time to revel in that oneness of Advaitam. And second one is Brahmarupa Nididhyasana, where in and through our day-to-day transactions, we devote a significant portion of our thought on our true nature. Even when we reach there, anything small, any small desire, infatuation is enough to pull us down. In the next slide, we see it equally affects lay people as well as intellectual people who are into the spiritual journey, analysis of various concepts and philosophies, equally are affected by this spontaneous outburst of passion, which will make the Mithya world appear as Satya and to come down radically like a snake and ladder game to a lower level where we react. This is something which Gaudapadacharya takes us, take our attention to in these verses. Passion for sense objects, which equally affects everybody, a person who is not even into spiritual journey. There will be, consider every desire, every passion as a mosquito. And suppose you want to have a quiet sleep after a busy day. What you do? You will put a mosquito net and go inside. And then you realize after some time that there's one mosquito inside, which is enough to ruin your peaceful sleep. Similarly, a single thought of considering anatma as real, mithya as satya, is enough to ruin whatever we have gained in our spiritual journey. As I said, it's not just confined to layperson who will not even recognize why it is happening like that, because he has let the mosquito in, maybe sometimes wantingly. That's what infatuation Venkatesh Prasadji was just mentioning about. Some people like Mullah Naziruddin's story, we know that he every day he comes back home with a tight shoe and then sits outside the house and takes out his shoe and says, Abba, now I am relieved. And it happens every day, and the neighbor gets amused by his behavior and asks, you know, your shoe is so small, but why do you still wear the same pair of shoe every day? Then Mullah says that I know this is too small. I know it is suffering throughout the day, but that feeling when I remove the shoe, that is the Mahadananda. And I want that every day. And for that feeling of relief, I wear this smaller size shoe. Similarly, sometimes we wantingly keep a kind of something to bite us and bring us down just for the rasa swada of fully knowing of the unreal world. So what if knowingly or unknowingly this single mosquito is enough, whether it is inside your mosquito net or inside your car when you are putting AC. You remember this, that any thought which is bogging you right now, which may be like a small dissatisfaction with your colleague, friend, spouse, or a thought that you have not gone through what you had to do today, or the desire of building a school or a NGO, or to make a video about Vedanta. So any of this, everything is a passion and everything is sort of mosquito. It does not end to the lay people and people who we generally see day to day. Even the intellectuals who have gone through Vedanta, as we see in the next slide, the passion for intellectual arguments. Again, here in that verse, it's mentioned that even these intellectual arguments are balisha. It's like child's play. Imagine children playing gully cricket, where they said, "Oh, now it is out. Now it is no ball. No, no, that's a correct ball. No, that's a put a catch. It's not actually a catch." Like that, people quarrel or asti nasti, like that. What are these? Now I'll refer. Asti of Vaisheshika philosophers say Atma Asti. For them, Atma is Saguna, and slowly it erodes, but over a very long period of time. It has a lengthy existence. That is Vaisheshika philosophy. Nasti is Kshanika Vijnana Yoga, Kshanika Vijnana Vadis. It's Yogachara Buddhism, where Buddhi Vetirikta Atma Nasti. For them, there's no Atma other than Buddhi. It's a flowing knowledge, Kshanika Vijnanam. So there is an Atma other than Buddhi, is Vaisheshika. There is no Atma other than Buddhi, is Yogachara Buddhist. Asti Nasti. And Asti Nasti is Digambara Jainism, exemplified by Digambara Jainism. From standpoint of inert objects, there is no Atma, but from the standpoint of living beings, there is an Atma. That's the point of view based philosophy. And Nasti Nasti of Shunyavada Buddhism, total absence, nothing exists. So these are various philosophies and concepts to explain about creation, about the inert world. So what we have seen is these people can be brought together to fight against their own contradictory statements, and that clears the matter that none of these are the absolute truth. Vedanta is not a philosophy. It is only a teaching that helps us, that helps me abide in my own nature. Vedanta is not a philosophy. Tarka, logic by itself is not enough to know my own nature. That's why when we see the various tabular column of an Excel sheet of various concepts, we won't see Advaita as a separate column. If it were to be there, then again we'll have to justify why this is right and something else is wrong. It's beyond. Advaita, every other concept, every other philosophy stops with Adhyaropa, whereas Advaita alone negates all other concepts and then introduces Sat, Chit, Ananda. And going further, again it's a step, intermediary step, it again further negates Sat, Chit, Ananda also as concepts of the mind. They're used for negating other concepts only. The next slide, we see the various viewpoints. That's the asti, nasti. They are like goggles we wear to see the unreal world. As long as we wear the goggles, the sky appears blue, which is not a fact. Blue sky, which is common knowledge that we say blue sky is blue. It's true based on experience. We can include that statement as true, but based on fact, we can easily exclude that. So this integration of all theories comes only when we negate them, exclude them, and take Advaita as the underlying principle, which is about something beyond, which does not talk about anything inert, anything Jada does not come into how it is gotten created, including our mind. So that is Advaita. The next slide we see how in the next two verses we are going to see how does integrated sage, that's a jnani, how is his thought process and how he behaves in the world and how he follows the path of dharma. So as we see here, it's like a thorn, the kind of, as the other example I gave was mosquito, other example you can take is a thorn. So when there's a thorn which is pricking and with every step it's hurting you, the best way to do is to stop, bend over, use another thorn like thing and take it out. Okay. As she is doing here, Shakuntala is doing here in Ravi Verma's painting, you see, she is longing for something beyond the thorn, the pain, everything. But it is necessary when this unreal world pricks you, makes you feel it's real. Stop, stoop down, use another thorn, take it out. And when you do that, you have two thorns. One, the instrument which you used to take it out, and the other which was embedded in your soul. Once you have that, what will you do? You'll throw both of them away, including the other thorn, which was your friend, which helped you to take out the actual thorn. Similarly, every process, every concept, including Vedanta, is an instrument to take out that ignorance, which is a thorn. And once you take it out, there's no need for that thorn again, either the one which was embedded or the one which helped you to take it out. Throw them both away. Look at that one thing for which you are longing all the while, and now you are free. Walk along. So that's the stage of an integrated sage who is dispassionate. He is not passionate about anything, including any of these intellectual concepts. He is beyond. And how does he behave? In the next slide, we see he behaves perfectly like a gentleman, perfectly like what Vedanta says we have to follow. Sadhana Chatushchaya Sampanna. Now, what it has become, because the mumukshutvam is no longer there because the desire is fulfilled. The only desire which is worth it is the desire of moksha. Once he has reached there, it becomes sadhana traya. So this Shat Samadhi, Shat Sampati, what happens? It becomes ingrained, his true nature. Like what? Like suppose you have gone to a foreign country and you have to drive there. Will you follow traffic rules? You'll follow it to the T because you know you have come to a foreign land, your stay there is temporary, and the easiest way will be to follow the rules of the land. So you follow, you maintain the distance, you follow everything, no parking, lights, everything, lane discipline. Why? Because that's the only way, that's the easiest way. This is one way of thinking. The second way at a higher level is once he merges with the Supreme Self, once that is Advaita, one and only, then whatever he does becomes dharma, becomes dharmic. Like they say, elephant, wherever it goes, it creates a path of its own. Like that, the true state, the natural state of the wise, whatever he does, will be, without his knowledge, be according to dharmic principles. Okay, so he becomes peace in himself. Mental freedom from kama krodha can never be called moksha. This is one important major statement, take home message today. In the next slide, we see the I accommodate mind as dry sand accommodates mirage water. Imagine a desert. So the mirage water is there only as a mirage, but you accommodate it as though it is real, fully knowing it's a mirage, unreal. So I accommodate mind, even though it is unreal, mithya, as dry sand accommodates mirage water. Vedanta teaches, I am different from mind with or without kama krodha. It's not like a gnani will not have kama krodha. He will have, but he fully knows it's just a child's play of the mind, which is anatma. Kama krodha reduction, that FIR reduction, you remember what in our early stages we used to? Frequency, intensity, recovery phase. All this is the early stages where it is for jnanam, not for moksha. Kama krodha reduction is for jnanam, not for moksha. But once you reach there, the calmness, cheerfulness, and confidence in your day-to-day transactions, which is inevitable as long as you're in your body, becomes 100%. That's the benefit of getting that liberation or moksha. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Komal. Very clearly explained what happens when spiritual knowledge dawns. The concluding Karikas will be explained to us by Dr. Sundar. Dr. Sundar, please.
Hari Om, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. So, after covering all these topics in the Alata Shanti Prakaranam, we finally come to the conclusion. In this next slide, we start with a few verses where Gaudapada Acharya revisits the central teaching of the entire Mandukya Upanishad. So the central teaching was in the form of Avastha Traya Viveka. So the teaching is about what are the three Avastha, Jagrat, Swapna, Sushupti, and that these are changing and there is a changeless substratum to which he draws our attention to. In this Karika, he defines the Jagrat and Swapna Avastha. He uses terms which Swamiji says may have been borrowed from Buddhist texts. So, Dvayam Laukikam refers to Jagrat Avastha, and in this Avastha, there are objects which he names as Vastu, and the experience is called Upalambam. In the second line, he defines the Swapna Avastha as Shuddha Laukikam, and here the external objects are not there, so the word Avastu. However, the experience of inner objects of thoughts is there, so, which is Upalambam. Let us now see what question we can raise to make our understanding better. Next slide, sir. So,
check if your camera is on, Sundar.
It is on, sir.
On, thank you.
Yes, sir. What is the waking state and dream state? And what are the experiences and objects in them? Next slide, sir. So the three avasthas change continuously. They rest on a changeless substratum, which is Turiya Atma, which is my Swarupam. Jagrata Avastha has wakeful experience and outside worldly objects, while Swapna Avastha has a dream experience with inner mind-based objects. So the experience, the word used is Upalambam and object is Vastu. So the experience is Jagrata Anubhava and Swapna Anubhava, and the objects are external and inner. We now go to the next verse. Next slide, sir. So this now deals with the third avastha, which is Shushupti avastha, and also in the second line, a kind of conclusion of the avastha Traya Viveka by Gaudapada Acharya, where he is summarizing the objects' experiences and what underlies them. With this verse, let us see what question we can raise, what question we can derive to improve our understanding. Next slide, sir. What is the deep sleep state? What are Jnanam, Jneyam, and Vijneyam? So we saw in this Karika, Gaudapada Acharya has a term for Shushupti Avastha, which is Lokottaram. And in this Avastha, the experience is one of ignorance, and which is Ajnanam and Sukham. In the second line, he summarizes the three avasthas by saying that in each of the avasthas there are experiences and there are corresponding objects, and these pairs, three pairs, the experiences and objects are constantly changing, and that they are mithya, and there is an underlying substratum which is the Turiya Atma, which is changeless, and which he calls it as Vijneyam. So a wise person therefore understands this and lays claims to the Vijneya Atma. Next slide, sir. So Trividhe refers to the three pairs of Jnanam, which in this Karika refers to experiences, and Neya refers to the objects in the three states. Kramena Vidite, in order, a seeker or a student comes to know. And the consequence of that is the result of the study of Mandukya, Upanishad, Swayam Sarvajnata, one becomes omniscient. So let us see what question we can raise to understand this Karika better. So how does this Karika define a wise person? Next slide, sir. So this wise person has examined these three pairs of experiences, their corresponding objects, how they are changing, and how there is a changeless Vijnaya Atma which is underlying it. Therefore, he is able to see the mithyatvam of the changing experiences and objects of the three avasthas and the satyatvam of the Turiya Atma. And having known this, wise person does not miss anything. He does not have any wants. Nothing is away from him because he is in the form of everything. Next slide, sir. So the last three Karikas, Gaudapada Acharya in a way condenses the teaching of the 12 mantras of the Upanishad. Obviously, those three Karikas are for a Uttama Adhikari who has now qualified or fit enough to take to Jnana Yoga. He realizes there may be seekers who do not have that qualification, and in this Karika, he wishes to address the Madhyama and the Manda Adhikaris. So we see four terms here. I wish you to focus upon Heyam, Jneya, Apyam, and Pakayani. So as we shall see further, these are the four prerequisites that Gaudapada Acharya is teaching that one needs to develop as a prerequisite for Jnana Yoga, that is to get Jnana Yogyata. So let us see the question that we can derive out of this Karika. The locus of any knowledge is the mind, so too Atma Jnanam. So therefore one needs to have a prepared mind. What are the four factors which Gaudapada Acharya lists in this Karika as a means to prepare the mind. So there are 4 factors we know already, of which one is a primary sadhana, that is that there is a thing called as Brahman about whom we need to know. So there is that interest in knowing Brahman. Then there are secondary sadhanas, which are Heyam, Apyam and Pakyam. Heyam is what should be avoided, the non-conducive traits, the Asuri Sampat. Apyam are the favorable traits which must be nourished, that is Daivi Sampat. Pakyam are some tendencies which may not be avoidable, like legitimate raga dveshas. So those Swamiji describes that they need to be roasted, in the sense that they should be converted from binding to preferences. And this is done by the process of Karma Yoga, which is Ishvara Arpanam and Ishvara Prasada Buddhi, which gives Samatvam and therefore takes away their ability to harm us. So we notice here that out of the 4 factors, the Nyayam is about Satyam, or the absolute reality, and the other 3 are empirical realities. Next slide, sir. So this last 3 verses, therefore, last 4 verses, therefore, covered the condensation of the Upanishad mantras and also the sadhanas. Now, in the remaining 10 Karikas, Gaudapada Acharya is basically focusing on 2 concepts. One is that what we are in search of, that happiness, peace, and security, is already within us. That is one point that he wants us to make aware. And the second point in the next 10 Karikas is that even after knowledge, Jnana-nishtha, Dvaita experiences continue. But I no longer draw a conclusion that Dvaitam is the reality. Experiences continue, but conclusion is one of Advaita. Let us see in this Karika now. Prakritya akashavat neyaha sarve dharmaha anadeyaha vidyate nahi nanatvam tesham kvachana kinchana. Next slide, sir. How does this verse describe our Swarupam? What are the 3 points which are highlighted here? Next slide, sir. Every Jivatma, that is each one of us, should understand himself or herself as Akashavat. We are of the nature of all-pervading consciousness. There are no limitations spatially. Anadayaha. We are beginningless or eternal. We don't have any limitations temporally. Nanatvam, plurality belongs to the body and not to me. So Advaitam is our Swarupam. There is no sadhana to do to know our Swarupam. It's a matter of knowing or claiming. Next slide, sir. Adi Buddhaha prakritya eva sarve dharmaha sunischitaha yasya evam bhavati kshantihi sa amritatvaya kalpate. Next slide, sir. So the question we can derive out of this Karika to make our understanding better is, how does this verse describe our Swarupam further? What are the 2 points which are highlighted here? Which seekers become fit to attain immortality? Next slide, sir. So as the contents of the Karika go, every Jivatma should understand himself or herself as Adi Buddhaha, self-revealing consciousness. I am reveals the self-revealing consciousness. So Swamiji here says how Vedanta does not really give you your status. It is basically peeling off all the adjectives that don't belong to you. So like adjectives like man, doctor, son, limit us by making us forget our true nature. Our true nature is one of self-revealing consciousness. So the second description is Shantihi, contentment. Our true nature has no wants. That person who understands this can claim immortality. So adjectives limit me, who am actually limitless. The person who understands this claims immortality. Next slide, sir. Adi Shantahi anutpannaha prakritya eva sunirvritaha sarve dharmaha samabhinnaha ajam samyam isharadham. Let's see what question we can raise to understand this better. Next slide, sir. How does this verse describe our Swarupam? What are the points which are highlighted here? Next slide, sir. Every Jivatma should understand himself or herself as Adi Shanta, by very nature incapable of being disturbed from the beginningless time. Anutpannaha, unborn. Sunirvritaha, completely detached. Samabhinnaha, equal without any divisions. Ajam, unborn. Samyam, equipoised or one. Visharadam, pure. So peace is not the gap between two disturbances. Peace is my true nature. Whatever you want to be, you already are. Next slide, sir. Vaisharadyam tu vai nasti bheda vicharatam sada bedani naha pritakvadaha tasmat te kripanaha smritaha. So in this Karika, Gaudapadacharya is talking about those who do not have this understanding. So let's see the question so that we understand the contents. So why should I abide in my Swarupam? What happens if I don't abide in my Swarupam and I'm absorbed in duality? Next slide, sir. So the Jivatma who does not understand himself, herself as Swarupam, as was described earlier, Vaisharadyam tu vainasti. So there is no perfection for one who is absorbed in duality. Te kripana smritaha. They are pitiable. Obsession with duality causes disturbed mind. So what is the solution? Be aware you are free as Atma and you can contribute to Anatma, and this is called Jivan Mukti. So we claim ourselves as Atma and we try to contribute to Anatma. As when we start to try to control Anatma, then we end up in samsara. So we have to approach Anatma objectively. Advaitin also experiences duality, but he does not see anything different from himself because he knows that one Atma alone is appearing as different Nama Rupa. Next slide, sir. Ajay samye tuye kyachit bhavishyanti sunischitaha tehi loka mahajnanaha tacha loka na gahate. Next slide, sir. Let us see the question. What is the glory of the knowledge of my Swarupam? Next slide, sir. So one reaches this knowledge after a very long, arduous journey. Karma Yoga gives Chitta Shuddhi, Upasana Yoga gives Sadhana Chatustaya Sampatti. Then there is Shravana Mananam. One constantly falls back into old ways. Then there is a spontaneous abundance in this knowledge through Nididhyasanam. Every Jivatma who understands himself as Swarupam is Sunischitaha, of firm conviction. Mahajnana has the greatest wisdom, and Loka na gahate, only a jnani can know another jnani. So here in this Karika, Gaudapadacharya is congratulating as an admirable one because binary format has become natural for him. He is a jnana, he is in jnana nishta, he is in Brahma sthiti, he is in Sahaja Samadhi. Next slide, sir. So these two describe the asangatvam of the Atma. So I have taken these two together. Let us look at the question here. Why is the one who is aware of Swarupam described as relationless or without a second entity or asangha? Next slide, sir. So here Swamiji says that these verses are very profound and Dvaitam is to be used initially to purify the mind and Having understood Swarupam as consciousness, Advaitam, all Anatma is folded into oneself with an understanding that there is no Anatma separate from Atma. Senses report Dvaitam. With Shastra Pramana, Vedanta makes conclusion that Dvaita Anubhava is present, but it is not Satyam, and Advaitam alone is Satyam. So the example of stars being perceived as small is given by Swamiji here. So through science pramanam, we come to know that they are large, but the experience of smallness continues, but your conclusion remains that it is large. Similarly, the setting and rising of the sun, that experience continues, but after science pramanam, you know that that is not the conclusion. So similarly here, duality experience or perception continues, but conclusion or obsession with the duality is what Gaudapadacharya is alerting us to be careful with. If Advaitam is Satyam, there cannot be a second thing to have a relationship. Just like the pot cannot have relationship with the clay, so also there is no Anatma with which I can have a relationship with. Therefore, I am a Sangha. So Gaudapadacharya also adds here that Buddha does not conform to this teaching. Next slide, sir. Anumatre api vaidharmye jayamane avipaschitah asangata sada na asti kim uta avarnachutihi. So this talks about what proportion of duality am I allowed? Am I allowed 1% of duality? Is it okay if I am 99% non-dual and 1% dual? Let us go to the question here. What if even a small thing as an atom were to be a second thing to Brahman? So this is answered in this Karika. Even if one atom is different, separate from Brahman, the Satyam statum of Brahman is gone, since Satyam means the only independent reality. So the consequence is instantaneous samsara. So what to say of moksha, which is far, far away? Atma is asanga. Next slide, sir. Alabdha avarnah sarve dharmaah prakirti nirmalaah ado buddhaah tata mukta buddhyante iti nayakaah. Question, sir. Next slide. If there is only one reality, which is Advaitam, then why does Atma appear veiled or concealed? Atma is self-evident, always available as consciousness. Samsara is transferring attributes of the body, like I am young, or the mind, like I am disturbed, to Atma. Self-knowledge is transferring back the attributes to where they belong. All of us are self-revealing, ever pure, enlightened, and liberated all the time. Vedanta does not give liberation or enlightenment. It is already there. Vedanta removes the misconception due to the wrong transfer of attributes. So the removal of misconception due to transfer of attributes to Atma is self-enlightenment. Next, sir, the last one. So this is the final Karika. Let us see how Gaudapadacharya ends the Karika. Durdarsham iti gambhiram ajam samyam vishardam buddhva padam ananatvam namah kurma yatabalam. So how does, question slide, sir? How does Gaudapadacharya conclude this glorious Upanishad and Karika? Next slide, sir. So this knowledge, Brahma Vidya, Atma Jnanam, is Durdarsham, difficult to grasp, extremely subtle, Ati Gambhiram, profound, Ajam, birthless, Samyam, one or sameness, Vishardam, pure or holy. Buddhva, having known, Padam Ananatvam, the state of non-duality. Namah Kurma Yathabalam, may we prostrate to with gratitude to Ishvara, to Guru, and to Shastra. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Sundar. And to all the speakers, each of you have taken these profound karikas and have given us an excellent summary. That was the whole objective. 100 karikas, we have not studied them verse by verse, but a group of 10 of us have taken and given us a gist, and I'm grateful for all the efforts. So those of you who want to know what these karikas, it is there in this series of 3 talks. Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha.
We have come to the end of today's satsanga, which has given us interesting insights about Mithyatvam of the world and Brahman, the Adhishthanam, being the only Satyam, the absolute reality. Our deep sense of indebtedness to our teacher, Dr. Timappa Hegde sir, and grateful thanks to all the speakers for explaining this great Upanishad in a way that we can understand and assimilate. Param Vedanta thanks each one of you for your continued interest in the pursuit of Atma Vidya through our series of sessions and also for your positive feedback. We meet again on coming Monday, the 2nd of December, for the 55th session of Gift. We conclude today's session with our usual Shanti mantra. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hari Om.